Hello and welcome to this episode of World Anvil. Today we are looking at myth and legend. Now, myth and legend is another one of those things that you add to your game, you add to your narrative, you add to your story that's just going to push it that much further. It's going to make it that much richer, because if we look at myths and legends in our own culture, it's all about giving us backstory. It's about creating a entity that is in that dark space, because that's ultimately what we're afraid of. We create these myths. Oh, there's this Nemean lion which can't be defeated except by Hercules, or there's a this, or there's a Hydra, there's a vampire, there's a this. As the template rollover says, the lore of your world. Think King Arthur, crocodiles in the sewers of New York, or Bigfoot. So absolutely, and every culture has got myths and legends around their origin story, around the monsters that lurk in the shadows. And so it is really something that's integral for you to add into your campaign. And this template does exactly what it needs to in terms of giving you everything that you want to add. So when you start to look at it, you've got obviously the summary of it. You've got the historical basis. So when we look at a lot of our myths, a lot of our legends, there is a historical base for it. We look at the origin of vampires, for example. We look at the origin of dragons. It's debated now how these things came about, but we generally assume that because people were afraid of the dark and they would see these shadows skulking around and they'd give them names. Mermaids are another example. Sailors suffering from scurvy or from dehydration see manatees frolicking around in the waters and mistake them for beautiful women. I mean, it's a common mistake. Whenever I go swimming, people mistake me as a manatee anyway. So, it's just really part and parcel of how we construct these ancient stories that then permeate and continue forward. We look at King Arthur as an excellent example. Here's this uniter of Britain, this original founding father who defied the odds and somehow came to power. Now, that leads to the Apocrypha, which I particularly quite like, is you've got one version of King Arthur, which is he was a Roman and he came in with the Roman invaders and he decided to support the Britons, and so he brought them that sort of unity that came about and brought about this golden age, almost like a mini Roman Empire within England. Otherwise, you've got the Merlin fighting Morgana as she leads Mordred against King Arthur and he's searching for the Holy Grail. So there's many different interpretations on the same theme. You can add that by obviously filling in this information. You can add in variations as well. But what are you going to use these myths and legends for? That's the important part, because everything else you need is all here. All absolutely here for you to work out and to add in and that sort of thing. So you can link it to different cultures and different races and things. So what are you going to use it for? What's its purpose? Well, its purpose is manifold, but principally the idea of having a myth or a legend gives your characters, your supporting characters, your non-player characters, your NPCs, your extras, your scene fillers, whatever you want to call them, it gives them something to potentially talk about. And when I say talk about, I mean when you're trying to create a set of tension, when you're trying to build up that there's more to it than meets the eye. One character simply needs to say, "Oh, it's like the case of the crocodiles in the sewers, isn't it?" Your characters might want to engage and say, well, what do you mean by the crocodiles in the sewers? And then you've got something to add there. If you are in a role-playing situation, it gives you the capacity to then ad-lib dialogue, to come up with dialogue on the fly, because you've got all of this information down there. And all that it's doing is that it's not necessarily giving any additional or new information about what's going to happen, but it does create a sense of dread, a sense of terror, a sense of anticipation, a sense of expectation as to what's going to happen next. So if you include a mythological retelling of a certain scene, we as the reader, as the viewer, as the participant are going to expect that something similar is about to unfold in our next encounter, in our next space. That gives you incredible power. Expectation is one of the greatest tools that you as the creator have in terms of driving the narrative. So if they're expecting crocodiles in the sewer and they go into the sewer and they in actual fact find an entire culture of lizard folk or crocodilians who are now living down there, that in a way is justification for the myth, but at the same time it makes your players, your reader, your participant actually appreciate and accept far greater that there's this crocodilian race down in the sewers because of one little sentence, one myth, one legend that you spoke about a couple chapters back or a couple encounters back. That expectation value is phenomenal, and that's what myths and legends allow you to do, is they allow you to add in this level of expectation. Oh, we've got these cultural things in Japan, where I'm based at the moment. The amount of myth and legend they have is huge, and it's mostly terrifying, dark-haired, pale-skinned women wandering around alone in the wastes. If I ever come across an individual like that, I will give them a wide berth, because I know they'll be after my soul or my fingernails or whatever it is that they're after. So it does create this incredibly wonderful sense of expectation, which you can use to your benefit in terms of telling your story. Anyway, write some myths, write some legends, create your own legend, and let's see how that changes your game. Until next time, light up the forge.